Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Family Sedan channel, and let me tell you at the outset that you are absolutely going to love this video because we got some very good news last night as XRP holders. Looks like justice is indeed coming our way. Judge Torres in the SEC v. Ripple case ruled against the SEC because they had motioned to seal the Bill Hinman documents. I'm sure I don't even need to set the table on this at this point. The Ethereum free pass speech and all the documents surrounding that and all of the emails. The SEC motioned to have all of that sealed. Well, finally, just last night, the news broke that Judge Torres ruled against the SEC, which in practical terms, let's be real, the net result is that Judge Torres ruled in favor of Ripple and, frankly, XRP holders. And understandably, market participants seem to have taken that as a indication, for a number of reasons, which I'll get into in this video. A lot of market participants took this as some sort of indication, and I think it's fair enough, speculating that Judge Torres is ultimately going to rule, if not fully in favor of Ripple, certainly rule in a way that will be favorable for XRP holders. And so the price of XRP jumped. In very short order, in fact, XRP jumped, it was something like 9 or 10% roughly. Very short order. And mind you, this isn't like an outright win for SEC. This has to do with the Hinman documents. And we still saw a price surge. Makes you wonder, like, what's going to actually happen when the incredible news drops, if it's what we think and hope it is. And there is a path forward for XRP in secondary markets. Whew, I can only imagine the price explosion that may occur. And so the price action, it was fun to see it go to the upside. Some of that has been clawed back since then. But man, the tables are set as far as this is concerned. Look, a few things that we're going to cover. I just want to let you know because this is really exciting and incredible stuff here. So, Attorney Jeremy Hogan has noted that as a result of this, he does think that this actually puts more pressure on the SEC to actually settle. Also, Attorney Hogan and Attorney Rispoli, they both think it's highly probable that Judge Torres has already written the summary judgment ruling. So maybe that means they're, dotting some I's and crossing some T's or making sure that's already done, but they think that there's a high probability it's already finished, which means we really are extra, even more so than ever, truly at the home stretch, at the very tail, like it's just imminent, perhaps. And, this was exciting too, check this out. A former SEC attorney who has been speaking in favor of the SEC, which is somewhat of a rarity, but fair enough. I think this guy's being intellectually honest. But he says that as a result of this news, he actually thinks that it's a sign that Judge Torres is not going to rule in the SEC's favor. He has never said that before. In fact, he'd been articulating quite the opposite. So there are all sorts of people taking this in all sorts of ways, but the vast majority of people, upon seeing this news and reading through the document, are coming to a supposition, which is simply that this is not going to be a good thing for the SEC when the summary judgment decision comes out from Judge Torres. It's not going to be good for, and it doesn't mean that it's slam dunk for Ripple. Don't get me wrong, but the SEC is not probable. It's not probable that they're going to get what they want. But before sharing with you additional specifics and thoughts on this from all sorts of people, I do want to be clear. I do not have a legal or financial background of any kind. I am not offering legal or financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. And so here you go. Yesterday evening, this news was shared by Attorney James Filan, member of the XRP community, and to have something shared so rapidly and to such a great extent, it's pretty rare. But this news breaking has now been seen by 2.4 million people. Now, at the time I'm recording this, it's May 17th, which is Wednesday, right? Yeah, May 17th, Wednesday. It is 5:45 a.m. So it's been just over a little over 12 hours, a little over 13 hours. 2.4 million people so far. And so here's what he tweeted out. Breaking, Judge Torres denies the SEC's motion to seal the Hinman documents, and you just love to see it. Because just as a friendly reminder here, Ripple's actually had all of these documents since last year. Do you remember this tweet from October 20th? Just as a little refresher here, this is Stuart Alderati. This is Ripple's chief legal officer, their top in-house lawyer. Here's what he tweeted October 20th of 2022. Over 18 months and 6 court orders later, we finally have the Hinman documents, internal SEC emails, and drafts of his infamous 2018 speech. While they remain confidential for now, at the SEC's insistence, I can say that it was well worth the fight to get them. I've always felt good about our legal arguments, and I feel even better now. I always felt bad about the SEC's tactics, and I feel even worse about them now. So we've been wondering, we've been speculating, what is it that's in here? Is it anything that could potentially be exculpatory? Because obviously Judge Torres is already well versed on this. She's gone through all of this stuff, and she's made the decision that not only is it not privileged information, but suck it SEC. I mean, she has not been ruling in a general sense in favor of the SEC, and that's not due to some sort of bias. The SEC's on the wrong side of history here. And I think it's been made abundantly clear to Judge Torres, which doesn't mean that Ripple gets everything they want. But even look at the last ruling before this, at the beginning part of March, with all the expert witnesses. That was a major win for Ripple. The SEC, the wins they got, they were minor ones, and the defeats the SEC had were massive ones, losing crucial expert witnesses because the judge just wasn't having it. Also, on October 20th last year, Brad Garlinghouse tweeted out the following. The SEC wants you to think that it cares about disclosure, transparency, and clarity. Don't believe them. When the truth eventually comes out, the shamefulness of their behavior will shock you. Folks, we're going to get it, and we're going to get that information soon. Now, here's what Brad Garlinghouse said last night upon this news breaking. He retweeted that news breaking from Attorney Filan, and Brad Garlinghouse wrote, "Another win for transparency. Unredacted Hinman emails to be publicly available soon. Stay tuned as the lawyers work through the mechanics to make that happen." And regarding that topic of the mechanics of all of this, we had some thoughts from Fox Business journalist Eleanor Terrett, because she has some sources. She's got more than a few sources. And here's what she had to say regarding the process. She wrote, "So Judge Torres has denied the SEC's motion to seal the Hinman documents, which means they will eventually be made public. So what's next? According to my legal sources, immediate next steps will be both parties sitting down and sorting out the logistics of how and when the documents will be released. Will the SEC try and file an interlocutory appeal to the decision? Possibly, but it would be a long shot for Torres to grant such a motion, as this is a discovery issue. It's also extremely unlikely that she would ever grant a stay of her order saying the documents must become public, even if the SEC did try to appeal. So now, some more waiting." Okay, so even if we have to wait a little bit more, I hope she's right on that. I hope that even if the SEC actually pushes back on this, that the judge just says, "No, you little bitches." That's all I want to hear. Just a simple little, "No, you little bitches." That's it. That's all I want. That's not too much to ask for, is it? We've had enough delays. And as Stuart Alderati pointed out last October, what did he say? Or what was the number? Six court orders. There were 6 court orders. And then finally, after all the pushback, the Hinman documents made it in the hands of Ripple executives. Finally. 6 court orders. And then there's this. Then we had to put up with this. Really grinds my gears when I think about it, son. Now, here's a perspective from attorney James Murphy, who goes by the name Meta Lawman, all up on the Twitters, and he wrote the following. "One practical effect of the ruling permitting release of the Hinman document is Gary Gensler now has to worry that, if the SEC sues Coinbase, all email, notes, and memos about his conflicting statements on the SEC's authority to regulate crypto exchanges will be made public." So that's just another fun little extra thing to consider. Now, here we have this. Now, this I really enjoyed because I was not expecting to see this. Here we have a former SEC attorney, Mark Fagel, and he does strike me as somebody who is being intellectually honest. I can't say the same for John Reed Stark. I think that he says a bunch of nonsense stuff. It's hard for me to believe that he actually believes the tripe he's saying. But here you have a former SEC attorney, Mark Fagel. he thinks that Ripple's in the wrong, and he's articulated his position. I've highlighted his stuff on my channel because, again, like I said, he strikes me as somebody who's being honest. I just don't agree with a lot of the stuff that he's saying, but that's fine. I like civil discussion, back and forth, sharing thoughts and ideas. That's fine. So, first, to note, Attorney Bill Morgan, member of the XRP community, retweeted the breaking news from Attorney Filan and wrote, "Overall, I think the decision bodes well for Ripple on the summary judgment motions." And this is where former SEC attorney Mark Fagel jumps in, and he seems to agree. He wrote, "It certainly seems unlikely the court would be making more documents available if planning to grant the SEC's motion." I'll tell you, when I read that, I was just like, huh. You've even got the former SEC guy who is pro-SEC and thinks Ripple's in the wrong here saying, yeah, this don't look good for the SEC. Now, that I really enjoyed reading here. And then you have somebody named King Blue responded, "Those docs are going to be very bad for SEC." And Attorney Fagel responded to him and said, "Presumably." So he agrees. He says, presumably. And then he expands on that thought and he says, "I think it's a question of whether they're truly bad, i.e. evidence of bad faith, which many here assume, or just embarrassing/legally problematic, i.e. a change in policy or internal confusion, which seems more likely." Well, I don't know for sure which one it's going to be. Yeah, probably one of those. But based on what Brad Garlinghouse said about how it's going to be shocking, I don't suppose he would have chosen that word if it weren't something rather severe. So I'm expecting something pretty damn terrible in here, to be honest with you. And as soon as that comes out, I'm going to be covering that stuff. And frankly, there's going to be a lot to break down in the coming days in particular. I'm just giving you some of the initial reaction from some of the attorneys within the space and some other people like Brad Garlinghouse and Stuart Alderay. But there's going to be a lot more to break down on this. This is a big deal. Here you have a comment from Attorney John Deaton. He wrote, "This, coupled with Empower Oversight's fight for transparency, and soon we will all see why former Supreme Court Justice Louis Brandeis said over a century ago, quote, 'Sunlight is said to be the best of disinfectants,' end quote." But yeah, I've always liked that quote. I didn't know where it came from. I just see a shorthand version of that used frequently in modern politics, and I'm just like, yeah, transparency is a pretty damn good thing. Now here you have something from Attorney Jeremy Hogan, and this gets really interesting here. So Attorney Hogan simply wrote in this particular tweet, "Judge Torres equals the people's judge," and he shared this part of Judge Torres' ruling, which reads as follows. "The court disagrees. Regardless of whether the court ultimately determines that the Hinman speech documents are admissible, or whether the court relies on the documents in ruling on summary judgment motions, they are judicial documents subject to a strong presumption of public access because they are relevant to the performance of the judicial function and useful in the judicial process. The Hinman speech documents would reasonably have the tendency to influence the court's ruling on a motion. Documents do not receive different weights of presumption based on the extent to which they were relied upon in resolving a motion. The court also rejects the SEC's argument that sealing is necessary to preserve openness and candor within the SEC. As Judge Knepern found in her order dated January 13th, 2022, the Hinman speech documents are not protected by the deliberative process privilege because they do not relate to an agency position, decision, or policy. Bam. Absolutely, I love to see this. It's all about transparency here. And, it's just, as attorney, as former SEC attorney Mark Fagel pointed out, if this is about to be a slam dunk for the SEC, why is she even bothering with this coming out? Well, as it turns out, there is speculation here from a couple attorneys, Attorney Hogan and Attorney Rispoli, that perhaps it's the case that Judge Torres' decision regarding summary judgment, the outcome of this case, it's already set. And I've speculated about that before, too, because how could you go this far and she not know what she's going to do in a general sense, even if technically you got to complete the draft? I've been saying that for some time now. So Attorney Hogan also shared this. He wrote, did anyone else reading the SEC v. Ripple order on sealing today think that the language reads as though at least a large portion of the order on summary judgment has already been drafted? Anyone? Bueller? And the answer is definitely yes. I want to share with you part of what the screen grab. I'm going to start right here where I'm circling anyway. And the judge, Judge Torres here, wrote, and as to Garlinghouse's compensation, although Garlinghouse is a party to this action, the court finds that both Ripple's business secrecy interest and Garlinghouse's personal privacy interest justify narrowly tailored redactions to his compensation information, which is minimally relevant to the court's decision on the summary judgment motions. So that last part's the relevant portion, which reads again as, which is minimally relevant to the court's decision on the summary judgment motions. And so I think where Attorney Hogan's mind was going, well, if she's wording it like that, if she knows that it's minimally relevant, perhaps it's because she already wrote the damn thing, and perhaps it's going to be good for Ripple here. And separately, he highlighted this part down here, which reads as follows, because the contents of these settlement agreements have minimal relevance to the summary judgment motions. So again, Attorney Hogan is wondering, and quite easy to understand why, that this might be some sort of indication that summary judgment's already complete. So maybe, again, dotting some I's, crossing some T's, or just making sure that work is done, and then we're going to get it. So it could be any day now. I know we've been saying that for a long time, but I think it's extra true now. Not just because more time has passed, but the fact that this came out, and look at the tone of all this stuff. It's just astonishing. In fact, so look at what attorney Fred Rispoli had to say, member of the XRP community. He wrote the following. Very hot take. The summary judgment ruling is obviously written, maybe completely finished, maybe some final touches left. Been saying any day now for a while, but it's really any day now. Also, nothing amazingly unexpected in this ruling except for Hinman email's decision. Although this is good and bad news in my opinion, a complete Ripple win would have given Judge Torres an out to not order production. Same goes for SEC. Doesn't automatically mean neither can win outright, but, as I have predicted, still think these are both low probabilities. Could compel SEC to settle, yes, but I think the cat's out of the bag on these documents, and eventually some enforcement case would have gotten them publicly disclosed, if not here in Ripple. But the tone of this ruling is pro-Ripple, so let's hope that carries into the summary judgment ruling. Yeah, so that's the way that the markets are just taking that in general, which is why I noted, again, the price of XRP, it jumped up very quickly, something like 9 or 10%, somewhere around there, and then it has come back down a little bit since then, but it's still up compared to where it was previously. And also, did I point out, let me go back to, oh yeah, actually I did fail. I'm glad I just thought of this because Attorney Rispoli said something similar. Somebody wrote to Attorney Hogan named Diamond Hands and wrote, Jeremy, would you say this puts more pressure on the SEC to settle? And Attorney Hogan simply wrote, yes, of course. So there's that as well. And, you know, I haven't been confident in an outright win for either party. I'm not an attorney, so I don't have as strong a conviction as some of the attorneys that have placed their verbal bets on this stuff. But I have stated, even if Ripple technically loses in any capacity, this could still be a major win for XRP holders so long as XRP holders are protected. And a big way to do that is to make sure that secondary market transactions continue to be allowed, because they absolutely should. And also, I would say, ideally, making sure that Ripple is allowed to buy and sell XRP just like anybody else on secondary markets, which they have been doing. They should absolutely, I know they've been, all the recent transactions, recent years had to do with on-demand liquidity, but you still get the cut of my jib, right? They should absolutely be able to continue doing that. There should be nothing to stop that. So, again, I'm optimistic as hell. All this did, for me anyway, personally, is just make me that little extra bit more confident. And I think that's how most of us are feeling at this point. So we're going to see what happens here. This is the initial info that I wanted to share with you on this topic. But again, there's going to be a lot more to talk about in the coming days. There's too much to unpack unless I'm going to make a 3-hour video. So I thought this would be a good starter bit. Let you know what some of the attorneys within our community have to say. But yeah, this is not going to be a slam dunk for the SEC in all likelihood. This is going to be good for XRP holders, and I can only imagine what that will mean for price action when this is all said and done. But I'll wrap up here for now. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the Moon Family Sedan.